you want to think about how you'll distribute the set and how you'll use it. Because this is February. We don't have time in lessons at this point in the year to stop and insert new strategy. So this is really about distributing the strategy over time, over things that you're already doing and would be doing already anyway. So the idea is, if you do the thinking work behind the scenes of what are the different ways that I want students to see the same idea represented? Do I want them to see it in recipe form and in menu form and in picture form? If you think about that set in advance, then you can decide how to distribute the options. So the first possibility is that you introduce it with all of those spread out for kids so that they can see them all at once. The kind of the way that mirrors what we would do if you were looking for a restaurant on your cell phone. You'd pull up Yelp, you'd pull up TripAdvisor, you'd pull up Google Maps, and you'd be texting your friend back and forth. 4 things going on, right? You could do that. You could spread them all out for kids and say, look across these texts and tell me what you find from them. You also could say, everybody pick one of these and come back and tell me what you found, so that students pick the one they're most interested in or the one that matches their level the best. If you don't think they'll make that level choice automatically, you can assign them into a jigsaw and say, I want this group reading this text, this group reading another, and they can come back and share. The other possibility is that you just distribute this over time. So we always begin perhaps with the explanation from the textbook, but tomorrow I want to also show you a picture of it. And the next day I want to also show you a movie clip about it. And the next day I want you to see what it looks like when it's not in textbook form, but it's actually in somebody's notes from when they're using that in an applied setting. So the idea is that kids haven't just seen it one place, one time. They've seen the words, the ideas, the methods of representing that idea, whether it's something that you take a picture of or that you draw, something that's easily labeled or something that doesn't usually have words attached to it at all. They've seen all of the different multiple representations of it over the week. Now this is where you might think, I obviously already do that anyway. And if you do, fantastic. Then integrating this strategy is not going to take any extra time or effort. However, when you notice yourself doing it, I want you to mark that so that you can express and share your example with other people in your department, and that the departments can share across grade levels and across departments. When administrators come into your room and ask you, how are you using sets of text, you'll be able to tell them exactly how you always already have been doing it. So if this feels familiar, good. Start naming what you do this way so that we have common language around it. The added layer, which may or may not already be happening very naturally, is that the part of the benefit of having multiple representations of the same idea is that you can actually talk to students about those representations so that they learn something about the discipline. Because we know that texts always exist with some implied purpose, audience, and format to them, right? They wouldn't exist without a purpose. Part of the purpose is wrapped up in who is using the text and what they need out of that text and how it's going to be used. And once somebody has considered what the text is for and who's going to use it, they usually design the text, hopefully, to match the purpose and audience as much as possible. So taking a look at how these different texts represent the same idea actually gives students a behind-the-scenes look at the discipline itself, at the community of people who use these ideas and who traffic in these concepts, so that they can understand and become not just consumers of, but at some point producers of, the kinds of text that you deal with in class. It lets them see behind the curtain and think about how the text itself was made and why it was made in that way. Sometimes that lets them consider possible sources of bias. Sometimes it just lets them understand how that text was made by somebody else so that they can read it quickly next time because they understand how it's organized, or so that they could create their own at some point. Either way, we're empowering students not to be able to take a look at a text and understand it for what it is and understand how it came to be, instead of just taking it at face value, which frankly is boring, but also isn't particularly empowering and isn't particularly engaging.